Do you know how to give critical feedback effectively? While it's never fun to tell someone where they need to improve, it is a necessary step you must take in order to allow the recipient to avoid the same mistakes in the future. In today's video, we're looking at how to deliver critical feedback effectively, as well as some examples of how critical feedback may shift depending on the circumstance in which it's being given. I'm Noel with Jotform. Let's go. Delivering critical feedback can be difficult. Even still, critical feedback is necessary to make a person aware of an issue they need to address. Try following these tips to ease the process. The key to giving critical feedback is to clearly structure what you plan to say. We recommend sharing feedback using this structure. First, describe the context or situation. Second, describe the actions the recipient took. Third, describe the undesirable results of those actions. Fourth, suggest better, alternative actions they could take. And finally, describe the likely results of the alternative actions you have suggested. Now let's look at some examples of how this structure might play out when giving feedback to a subordinate, a peer, and a manager. Notice how the structure will remain the same, but the context will be adjusted according to the relationship of the parties. For example, when giving feedback to a subordinate, I understand that you had to finish 3 tasks for the integration project by the end of last week. I also understand that you asked other departments for input, but they didn't respond in time, which resulted in you completing only one of the tasks. Even still, because the tasks were incomplete, the entire project is now delayed. Another way you might approach this could be to suggest that the recipient should have made you aware of the lack of response from the other departments. Emphasize to the recipient that taking this step would have helped to keep the project on schedule. Alternatively, when giving feedback to a peer. During the conference last week, I made sure to attend your presentation because I enjoy your work. I noticed that you included a lot of useful information that you had to cover in a short period of time. I also noticed that a few of your slides were a little wordy, and you had to rush to get through them. It seemed like you lost the audience during those slides. For next time, I suggest doing a dry run, which I would be happy to help with. That way, you have the opportunity to trim down the slides and to test the timing of your presentation. And lastly, here's an example of giving feedback to a manager. I've had a few thoughts about what you said about the task force that I'm leading. You mentioned that you're disappointed that we're behind schedule, and you volunteered to take the lead instead. That made me feel dismissed and undervalued. Instead, it would have been helpful if you had asked questions to better understand where the bottleneck is occurring. I was hoping for more support, not to transfer ownership of the project. I plan to look for more time in your calendar for when we can talk about our next steps. Keep in mind that critical feedback is more effective when you balance it with praise. Your first reaction may be to draw attention to what's wrong, but choosing to focus on the negative tends to make employees feel undervalued. So instead, focus on areas where they have done something right. It can be stressful for employees to give critical feedback to their managers because the potential repercussions feel fairly intimidating. Employees should try to deliver their critique in a professional manner that demonstrates both careful thought process and genuine concern. With all of the great information we've covered today, let's take a moment to review. Sharing critical feedback can be a difficult process. It's necessary for the recipient to better understand how they can improve in the future. To ease the process for you and the recipient, try delivering your feedback in a structured manner by following these 5 steps. First, describe the context. Second, describe the actions. Third, describe the undesirable results. Fourth, suggest alternatives. Fifth, describe the desired results. And always include positive feedback alongside critical feedback to reassure the recipient that they are valued. Thanks for joining us. I'm Noel with Jotform. We'll see you next time.